America needs to repent for the treatment of Aaifa Siddiqui. You see, she was drugged as she was moved around from safe house to safe house. A small woman. The hatred that permeated throughout the West and Israel contaminated her trial. Americans' sense of justice has been permanently diluted due to this reprehensible act of oppression. Americans take too much pride in being imperialists. Why did they treat this woman this way? Why did they treat the hundreds of Gitmo prisoners the way they have? Solitary confinement, being attacked by other prisoners who almost certainly were influenced by the guards and by the system. Her first lawyers were Jewish. Yes, they had Jewish lawyers assigned to her in coordination, in collaboration with the Pakistani government. 9 witnesses with conflicting testimony. What really happened with the M4 rifle? Well, if we ask the FBI ex-firearms expert, he said he doubts that the rifle was even fired in the room. Why did ISIS want to trade Foley for Siddiqui? Perhaps more importantly, why did America say no? They said, we hate you people so much. We've labeled you just like we label people with mental disorders. They labeled this woman, who one site has shown me that she has 144 honorary degrees, including one from Harvard. I don't know how true that is, but what is true is that she was a PhD. She is a PhD in neurology, a PhD neurologist. So is her sister. She has children. It's been claimed that she was threatened. They threatened to rape her daughter if she didn't write the names of U.S. landmarks on little jars. They contained, what was it, sodium something. Let me see if I can find this. It contained some kind of chemical which is associated with terrorist activity. Well, I'll put it in the comments. If you just Google her name and you look at her pictures, look at how sickly she looks, how abused she is. In 2002, she was 42 years old. 86 years they sentenced her. She was educated at MIT and Brandeis. But they would have you believe that psychiatry is not a fraud, when in this trial alone they said, yes, she's suffering from, I think it was severe depression and something psychosis. I'll put that in the comments too when I have a chance. And then they said, no, she's malingering, or she is faking it for the trial. Well, we force people on medication based on psychiatrists' opinion. Not only do they have conflicting diagnosis, but even in such an important case where you know that they must have assigned a psychiatrist who is respected, or, you know, their job is very important, you would think that it would be someone who's extremely competent, right? So the most competent of psychiatrists doesn't know a fucking thing and change their mind whether someone is severely mentally ill or whether they're faking it. Not just mentally ill, but severely mentally ill. From psychosis. The system was used against her. It was a conspiracy that involved medical experts, legal experts, military personnel, judges, mental health. This malevolent cabal mistreated a 42-year-old Muslim woman who knows better about politics than they do. The victim of rendition, the victim of the notorious Pakistani ISI, and she claimed she had information about American-sponsored terrorism and American-sponsored puppet organizations. Did anyone care to listen to her? It's funny how we'll let Sammy the Bull go for all these homicides for having information about John Gotti. But when it comes to terror attacks, no one's interested in what she has to say. We'll waterboard people for fucking years in Cuba and Guantanamo Bay and in Islamic nations abroad, trying to get information, or really trying to get them to say things we want them to say, how we want them to say it. But when somebody who's supposed to be linked to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed supposedly married his nephew, one of the masterminds of 9/11, supposedly, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was, supposedly. We won't listen to her. Well, it doesn't matter what she has to say. What does she know anyway? Why? Maybe it's because we know that she's not the terrorist we made her out to be, or we know that she's right and we don't want that information to come out. The allegations of unprincipled infidels. The life of the Muslim is a life behind bars, a life of jihad and death, because this is the environment of Satanism that they have put the Muslims in. You see them suffering, sexually abused, rectal feeding done on male inmates, raping female inmates, threatening to rape their family, making up stories, falsifying evidence, contradicting, conflicting testimonies that were presented by people who have been coached beforehand. So imagine if they had gotten it right. How much harder would it be to see through what is going on? And then the Jewish lawyers and the other lawyers said, we're going to play this mental health angle. See, that's what they do. They put you in a situation where you'll have it easier if you do it their way. And then they can turn around and say, well, when somebody is a fundamentalist or a radical, it's because there's something wrong with their brain, not something wrong with society. Just like the honest psychiatrists did back in, I think it was the 50s and 60s, they said, anger, frustration, the things that we are defining and describing as mental disorders are the appropriate response to society. Everyone else is sick. When you see people getting tortured and you feel nothing, that is sick. When your fellow man is being exploited, marginalized, and oppressed, and you think nothing of it, that is sick. Your inability to feel justified and righteous indignation, that is sick. A system which systematically oppresses righteous people, intellectual people of the highest moral standard. That is sick. Telling the most righteous people in the world that your culture, your religion is evil, while you have the biggest prison population in your country with only 1% Muslims. Why 500,000 people are drugged to death in the West by non-Muslims. Why over 33,000 more people die from prescription pills each year than by terrorist attacks in the West. That is sick. Covertly drugging the top martial artist. That is sick. Convincing people it is okay to abort their little children who haven't even given their first cry, drank their first bottle of milk, said their first word, haven't even had a chance to crawl. That is sick. To be led by spiritual bottom feeders, while the masses of the people who call themselves Christians, black, white, Hispanic, yellow, native, Semitic, all turn a blind eye to the atrocities, to the unforgivable, ignominious crimes of these mortifying, ignoble, heartless, rapacious, repugnant, spiritual fucking bottom feeders who are led by a bunch of secret society scum! 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 That is the epitome, that is the essence of sick.